Hi, good afternoon everyone. Thank you for joining us at the Walk Cycle of Stirling public drop-in session to view the developed designs throughout this consultation phase. We're just going to start with an overview of the Walk Cycle of project for those of you that are new to the project, and just as a refresher for those that have been part of the consultation to date. So we're just going to go through what the project is and why we're doing this active travel project, and then we'll just touch on the project organisation and the programme for the project. So what is Walk Cycle of Stirling? Well, it's an active travel project that Stirling Council in partnership with Sustrans are seeking to deliver exemplar walking and cycling infrastructure, as well as creating more attractive and dynamic public spaces. And it's a project that's targeted to transform the city of Stirling into a more sustainable, vibrant and accessible place for everyone to live, work and visit. And we'll be transforming two key transport corridors, making it easier for people to walk and cycle into the city centre. And along these two routes, there'll be spaces created for people to rest, play, connect with nature and to learn a bit more about the city's rich history. I've just put a map here on the screen for contextual awareness of the two routes that we're talking about. We've got the Stirling Station to University route and the city centre to Forth Valley College route. Now the Stirling Station to the University, it starts at Stirling train station on Goosecroft Road and continues along Cowan Street, past the Cowan Centre and then across Old Stirling Bridge, where it continues up Causeway Head and then connects to Airtree Road and terminates at the University of Stirling entrance at the roundabout. The second route is the city centre to Forth Valley College route, which starts in the city centre at Upper Craigs and continues along Albert Place and Dumbarton Road. So you go past the Albert Halls and the Smith Art Gallery, past the King's Knot and then continues north up Raploch Road and then joins on Drip Road where it terminates at the Forth Valley College campus. So why are we doing Walk Cycle of Stirling? Well, Stirling Council's local development plan and the City Region deal has set out ambitious plans for Stirling to grow in a way that gives us the best possible place for people to live and enjoy, whilst enabling walking, cycling and placemaking within the city. We have committed to increasing the number of shorter journeys made on foot and by bike, and this will help us tackle the traffic congestion, improve air quality and tackle the health issues, as well as improving the public realm and urban experience. And so by providing a better cycling and network infrastructure, we will be bringing additional economic, health and environmental benefits to our city. So who's behind this project? Well, I'm Kaylee, I'm the project manager for Walk Cycle of Stirling, and we've also got Kevin Argue as our transport development team leader. We've got Michaela Jackson as our community engagements officer. And the Sustrans team behind the scenes for Walk Cycle Live, we've got Mary Davis and Davina Bright as project coordinators, and we've got Letty Valley as an infrastructure officer as well. So last year in February 2020, we went out to consultation on our concept designs and we held various workshops and drop-in events and our online website gathering feedback. And since then we have collated and analysed all that feedback and since prepared developed designs which we're bringing to you today and throughout the next throughout March and April. These designs are available to view online now, so we've got those uploaded on our website today for people to view, download and comment and provide us your feedback. Today we've also got the questions and answer function throughout Microsoft Teams. So throughout this presentation you can be submitting questions and we've got a team behind the scenes that will be answering those. So we'd look to have these designs finalised in spring and then we can then prepare detailed construction drawings ready to start construction of the two routes in the tail end of the summer, and our anticipated construction programme is 2 years, so we anticipate to be complete in 2023. And just a note here that this the Walk Cycle of Stirling project was awarded funding through the Stirling and Clackmannanshire City Region deal, the active travel programme, and it has been match funded by Sustrans Scotland. So I'm just going to now touch on the developed design proposals, and we're going to start with the Forth Valley College route. So this gives you a general map of the route, which we talked about, starting with Upper Craigs, Albert Place, Dumbarton Road, Raploch Road, and then Drip Road. And just to put things into a bit of context here, you can see the streets that we're talking about. So we'll be commencing at Upper Craigs in the town centre. So in February, our concept design proposals showed a contraflow cycleway in Upper Craigs, so opening up the east end of the Craigs for one-way traffic. This allows more carriageway space to be reallocated for the cycleway and for the footpaths. And at the end of Upper Craigs, we'll be proposing a left turn only at that Wellgreen link, so it takes traffic away from the roundabout, therefore ensuring that the users of this road would really be for the residents and the businesses. So we'd have a segregated unidirectional and then cyclists travelling eastbound on carriageway. We've improved the public realm space as well, so we've taken away a lot of that that space that is currently used as a turning circle. So there's quite a lot of feedback throughout the consultation. We did workshops with the businesses, the steering groups and the local community groups, and there was some valuable feedback. So there's ideas such as improving lighting and signage from Wellgreen Car Park, so the link that connects Wellgreen Car Park and Upper Craigs. There were ideas of making the Port Street junction more attractive by trying to extend the public realm space and continue the paving. Suggestions of restricting vehicle access, so it's only delivery vehicles and disabled access only. There's concerns that there will still be parking on the cycleway, so the segregation might need to be something a bit more, some suggestions such as boulders and other suggestions for taking away parking altogether on Upper Craigs and just having it down at the east. So this feedback's all online as well, so you can look at it in a bit more detail. So what we did with this, we then took our developed designs by improving the public realm space to the southeast. We've changed the cycle lane down to the other side of the road, so it just improves the safety for all. There's no longer a conflict with parking. We've added some additional greenery and some trees. We've taken some more parking locations on the east for increasing the public realm space. And we have been looking at the wider network connections for linking to Wellgreen and Waitrose. I'm just going to zoom in at these proposals for the developed designs. So this is a general arrangement overview of the street. It is similar to the concept design, being it's a contraflow, so a segregated cycleway in one direction going west and on carriageway going east. And you can see the detailed area that's highlighted there. We've just made into a large sort of public realm space, so it's footway. We're proposing all the footways to be widened and to be natural stone, the carriageway to be resurfaced in a granite chip tarmac surface. We're just going to zoom in onto the detailed area, so you can see the sort of the layout at the end of the junction there, and how the space could be utilised. I've got a visualization here just to try and put things into a bit of better perspective of the current view looking westbound here just at Cameronian Street. We'd like the natural stone paving as we've suggested. The cycleway would be a contrasting material such as what's shown here, and we'd just like to re-emphasise that we will be retaining the parking where necessary, specifically the blue badge holders, the loading bays and the permit holders. And just another section here to get an idea of how the space will be accommodated and the material choices that we'd be proposing. So we'll move on to Albert Place. I appreciate we're sort of going through these fairly quickly, but the drawings are available online, which you can view and submit questions as well whilst in this presentation. So Albert Place, that's the connection from Upper Craigs at the Port Street junction. So it technically is Dumbarton Road East, where the businesses are at the east end there, where it then continues on to be Albert Place and then terminates just at Dumbarton Road West at the existing mini roundabout. So our concept design proposals here was a bi-directional segregated cycleway along the north side of the street. There was limited space available, so the width for the footway was reduced at pinch points even after the carriageway being 5.5 metres, which is below the 6 metres requirement, and the cycleway down to 2.8 metres, so that's less than our 3 metres requirement. So at the west end, the trees were in danger of this. Any sort of movements with the curb line would have potentially required the trees to be removed and new trees planted. Also, all the parking on the north would have had to been taken away to allow the space for the segregated cycleway, and all the parking on Dumbarton Road East, including the accessible bays, would have had to been relocated. This was the junction proposal where the current mini roundabout is. So we'd be looking to create a gateway into the city here for walking and cycling whilst deterring vehicle through traffic. So trying to change the junction alignment to force traffic and continue down Queen's Road. So the feedback we got at these proposals was just emphasising the cycle and pedestrian safety, so ensuring that there was accessible crossing points that would allow connections to Kings Park. Cyclists that would like to travel on Queen's Road need connections southbound. We wanted raised tables and raised crossings to make it more accessible for pedestrians. There was also suggestions for traffic calming measures to be implemented to ensure that speeds were down, specifically around zebra crossing locations. So following consultation, we understood the desire to retain the trees and most of the parking, specifically the blue badge parking loading bays on Dumbarton Road East at their current location. So we've since reviewed the options available in this location to provide safe cycle infrastructure, and we're now proposing a cycle street. And a cycle street is designed so that active travel modes such as walking, cycling and wheeling will become the dominating form of traffic. So the streetscape designs that we're proposing will aim to make it immediately apparent to drivers that they are guests in this location. So other things that we've done as well is redesigning the junction site as those comments that we received through concept design. So making raised tables at the crossings and implementing traffic calming along Albert Place. So we're going to look at these areas in a bit more detail. We've got the junction area that we've spoke about, so we can see how that's developed. We'll then look at another area that's sort of halfway along Albert Place, and then we've got a visualisation just outside the Albert Halls to show you as well. So here we can see the detail. We've added some greenery here. We've allowed the cycleway to continue southbound as well for that connection, and added in a safer crossing to access Kings Park and southbound. The raised tables have been introduced at the junctions as well, allowing easier pedestrian crossing at these junctions. Along Albert Place then, so to create a cycle street would be introducing traffic calming measures, what we've spoken about briefly, and these can be things such as cycle friendly rumble strips, so creating a different texture for where the tyres would be crossing while still allowing cyclists to bypass in the primary position. So although we'd be maintaining the road as well at 6 metres, we'd propose a half a metre centre line. So rather than a white dash line that's shown on the visual there, we'd like it to also be a rumble texture. So it's sort of creating that visual narrowing down. So the carriageway becomes 5.5 metres wide. We'd be reiterating cycle priority here, so there'd be signage introduced, ensuring that vehicles don't overtake cyclists. And we'd be also looking to reduce traffic speeds entering and exiting the junction. So we've added some buffers here, such as tree planting can be used, just narrowing down those junctions further. And you can see we've retained the parking as well on the north here, as well as all the existing parking that was retained previously. And this is what it could look like outside of Albert Place with this intervention. So we've widened the footpath quite significantly. We've introduced natural stone, we've introduced some greenery and trees, whilst maintaining the parking. You can see just north past the zebra crossing there, you've got that half-a metre visual narrowing along the centre line, which is just a different texture and material to the tarmac. So when proposing this proposal to the steering group, it became quite apparent that for it to become successful as a cycle street, we needed to achieve significant reduced traffic flows along Albert Place and Dumbarton Road East. So such interventions that we did consider included bus gates, local access only, and restricting vehicle movements from side streets. So bus gates are used to prevent access by general through traffic beyond a certain point and allowing only buses, taxis and cyclist movement through. So we are currently exploring the possibility of a bus gate on Albert Place and Dumbarton Road East to reduce these traffic volumes and ultimately discourage the use of the road as a through route to the city and from the city centre. And we need to maintain bus movement here to allow people access to sustainable travel, but also allowing the tourism coaches to access the key visitor attractions as well. So the vehicles would still be able to access this road. So those living in the streets, the businesses, etc., would still be able to be accessed, but only up to the gate from either direction, and allowing vehicles access to these properties. So on screen are the 4 proposals that we have looked at for Albert Place. And so our suggestion would be, I'll just talk you through what these show first. So the blue dot represents where a bus gate could be located for the westbound traffic, and the pink circle is the proposed location for a bus gate that would be going eastbound, and the dashed line is the route which would be restricted to buses, taxis and cyclists only from the point of the gate. It's important to note though that there are other side streets that would allow access to Albert Place for those that require to the property's businesses and such like. So the idea of a bus gate, it just enforces the restriction of through traffic and ultimately will provide a safer street for cyclists and a more pleasant environment for the local residents and businesses and those currently walking that walk in the area. So our suggestion would be that the bus gate would be option 3 as the preferred, where it would be either side of Allen Park. So vehicles travelling from the town to the west would be diverted back to the town centre via Allen Park, thus creating an inconvenient route for the westbound traffic. So for all the other options, although they would be viable, we would just need to consider other interventions to ensure that the routes doesn't get, the side streets become shortcuts. So we could consider restricting traffic movements, banning left or right turns, or just closing off the ends of some of these streets, just to try and emphasise that. So these are some things that we're exploring throughout this consultation phase with stakeholders and the public. So Dumbarton Road then continues from that junction that we're proposing. So we've got Dumbarton Road that goes past the King's Knot, and then Raploch, which connects Raploch Road, which connects us to Raploch just across Bacca Hill Road. So our concept design for Dumbarton Road revolved around the proposed parking relocation. So Dumbarton Road currently hosts parking spaces which would need to be relocated for this segregated cycle we were proposing, and at the concept design we were showing them at the east as east-north, that's located in this picture here. So there were some concerns raised throughout the consultation regarding the layout and the potential conflict with the cyclists and pedestrians with some of the movements here, and there was also notes that we needed to ensure that we provided cycle links to, west and for future cycle route to Gargunnock. So what we did was we have resituated the location of the parking to the south side, therefore taking away this interaction with the segregated cycleway. We've also provided wider segregation along Dumbarton Road now as well, and we've facilitated, we've added in a crossing for the Gargunnock link. So just look at these in more detail. And looking first at Dumbarton Road here, so we can see that the parking bays have now been moved to the other side, requiring less interference with the proposed segregated cycleway, and allowing us to maintain our 3 metre width bidirectional cycleway that runs along Dumbarton Road and continues up to Raploch Road. You can see there as well, we've also added in a crossing point there to connect between our bidirectional to traffic going west. So the route then continues north along Raploch Road up to the roundabout at Bacca Hill. There's a short section that's a pinch point where we need to reduce the bidirectional cycleway down, and to do this safely as segregated, it would be below our minimum standards. So we're proposing this area to be shared use, which can be seen in blue just at the bottom there, at the south of Raploch Road. However, we've managed to allow the bidirectional to continue all the way along with a wide segregation strip of 1 metre. And this is a typical section of what it would look like. So you can see a metre wide segregation there between the carriageway and the cyclists on this busy stretch, and the footway and cyclists. You've got contrasting material and a segregation curve between the cyclists and the pedestrians. Raploch was dealt with through Raploch Street Design. It was a Sustrans led project that was involved heavily with the community. We've just taken the designs into a bit more detail. The concept designs showed the bidirectional cycleway continuing up to just before the bus turning circle, and then the cyclists have the option to connect. They can continue either on the carriageway up Raploch Road or the side road. That's currently used for residential parking, and there was raised tables added at the junctions there, making traffic speed reductions, removing the centre line and ensuring that it was a 20 mph zone as well. So there was some concerns about the loss of parking in this location, and that the north connection between the side street and Raploch Road was unclear, needed to be a bit more detailed. So we just replicated the cycle street detail that we spoke about in Albert Place, just to re-emphasise that this space is prioritised for active travel modes. So we've introduced this rumble strip to the centre, again visually narrowing the carriageway. We've improved the landscaping in this location, and we've improved the connections between the side street and Raploch Road to allow convenience for the cyclist to choose between the two options. So we can see here that we're maximising the greenery in the centre there, improving biodiversity, and we've improved these connections. So we're just going to look into a bit more detail at one of these junctions. It's Huntley Crescent, and then we'll just continue up the rest of Raploch Road, which just continues the cycle street detail. We've introduced some planters along the footway as well. So this is the junction proposal at Huntley Crescent. So we've reduced the sort of turning entrance in and out of the junction here, just forcing traffic to reduce their speeds. And we're also proposing to put in a zebra crossing at this location. So you can see it's a raised table as well from the carriageway, acting as another further traffic calming measure. We'd like to introduce some nice feature paving around this location as well. And this is an idea of how it could look like. So with the introduction of some planters, improving the green space at the centre there, and just maximising the space for walking and cycling. That's another typical section of how it could look like. Okay, and we'll just then continue along up to Drip Road where it terminates just at the college. So our concept designs here again just continued with the Raploch Street design proposals, and that was just a unidirectional segregated cycleway that ran along Drip Road up to the college, and again proposing raised tables at the junction where it also connects eastbound to Drip Road. So our proposals through the develop design maintain list detail just went into a bit more developed design work. We've carefully redesigned the junction connecting east to Drip Road, allowing those connections with cyclists to be a bit more clear. And we've got a formal termination point just at the bus stop, allowing access to the college through that walkway there. And this is what a unidirectional cycleway would look like. So it's one-way, cyclists going in either direction, and with the segregation, it's a detail similar to what was seen previously. So you've got about ½ a metre separating between the carriageway and the cyclists, and the contrasting colour for the cycleway material. So I'm just going to run through the university route, which will commence with Goosecroft Road at the train station and then continue along Cowan Street to Lower Bridge Street, across Old Stirling Bridge, and then continue through Causeway Head and Airthry Road. Again, just in a bit more detail so you can get your bearings here. We'll be starting just at the south there at Goosecroft at the train station. And our concept designs here, it allowed for a segregated bi-directional cycleway that commenced at the train station, which also ties into the Stirling station redevelopment project, and continues along the entirety of Goosecroft Road and then onwards to Cowan Street. And we were looking at doing a segregated cycleway throughout the crossing junction at Riverside. So there was a request that this junction was developed further. It currently didn't provide much detail on how the cyclists and pedestrians would interact here, and they wanted more time for pedestrians to cross at this junction as well. So just detailed this a bit further by putting in new level crossings at the minor junctions along Goosecroft Road, as well as redesigning the signalised junction here to incorporate the manoeuvres for cyclists and pedestrians to remain separated. So all three junctions have been redesigned. So the minor accesses there to the east are now level crossings. So the footway will continue across at a level rather than drop curbs. And we have redesigned this junction just to allow the cyclists and pedestrians to still remain separate as they're crossing, and we've allowed that connections to the town centre as well. And we've relocated the bus stop that's currently on the southbound lane, and that's just going further south of the train station. Just an idea of how it could look. So we've got plenty of space on Goosecroft Road to accommodate a bi-directional cycleway. And again, just so you can see, we're still maintaining the right-hand filter lane for vehicles, the bus lay-by, and the 2 lanes of traffic, as well as our bi-directional cycleway, a ½ a metre buffer between the cycleway and the carriageway and the footway. So onwards to Cowan Street now. Just some points here just to get your bearings again, where it continues on to and where it goes past. Again, plenty of space on Cowan Street, so it's fairly straightforward to implement a bi-directional cycleway that continues on, and we also had opportunities to retain the parking, but also introduce some additional greenery, some rain gardens and some trees. So there was encouragement about introducing greenery in this area to make it more attractive. There was concerns that the junctions needed improving for the safety. Specifically, that there's a zebra crossing just outside the Pizza Hut that was considered dangerous, and there was a suggestion that the proposed crossing north of Cowan Street should be closer to the bus stop. So we looked into this a bit more. We have retained the addition of the trees and rain gardens. We've moved the control crossings closer to the bus stop and to the Cowan Centre. We've redesigned the junction at the Wall Street just outside of Pizza Hut, and we're also proposing to make Douglas Street exit only, which is just one of the streets off of Cowan Street. You can see there just in the sort of centre line of it. Currently Douglas Street is either side parking, so it's very narrow for two-way traffic. It's only really one direction anyway, so that's something that we'd like to go through in a bit more detail with the local area for that proposal, but just allows that junction to work much more safer as segregated cycleway and footway across. So throughout our developed design, we are, like I said, maintaining the segregated cycleway, the parking. We've introduced trees, and we've just relocated the crossings, the proposed signalised crossings to locations suggested in the concept design consultation. And the area just outside of Pizza Hut, the Wallace Street junction here, has been detailed a bit further, so you can see how the floating bus stop would work, allowing safe crossings for pedestrians across the cycleway at the north there. The zebra crossing is being retained at Pizza Hut, but just setting back the bus stop further to reduce that conflict that was raised. And this is just how it could look, looking north from Cowan Street, just at the end outside the Cowan Centre. We've introduced a signalised crossing and some tree planting here, and this would be what would be called the floating bus stop. And a typical section, again, showing the different materials proposed and the widths. So Cowan Street continues to Lower Bridge Street. Lower Bridge Street is just the road that's north that brings us up to the Lawrence Croft roundabout. And then we'd propose that the segregated cycleway would then continue east across Old Stirling Bridge onwards to Causeway Head. So initially our concept design proposals was to change the roundabout to a fully signalised junction, and we also suggested a natural play area to the west of this roundabout. There was quite a bit of concern about the location of the play area, a suggestion saying that around the Old Stirling Bridge would probably be more suitable, considering that it's next to a busy road. There were suggestions that the segregation for the cyclists would be best if it was widened at the T-junction. And there was a demand for a crossing on Lower Bridge Street. So we have changed our concept design, our proposals here throughout our developed design, so we are retaining the roundabout now. However, we are still looking at doing a controlled crossing on Drip Road for cyclists and pedestrians. We have introduced the zebra crossings on Lower Bridge Street, and we have widened the cycleway segregation on the approach to the roundabout. So we're just going to zoom in on these areas in a bit more detail. So the developed design for Lower Bridge Street here, we've introduced the zebra crossing, just allowing connection to those that like to go to Raploch, travelling along that sort of shortcut west path across the greenery. And you can see that we've retained the roundabout there, and proposing a level crossing just halfway between the two roundabouts. So those that wish to still use the underpass can do so. However, we're providing an alternative route here for those that do not wish to use the underpass. We've just redesigned the parking layout here as well, just to allow a bit more ability to improve the greenery and the layout of the cycleway. And on the other side of the bridge here, we've added in the addition of planting strips along the paths, trying to keep it separate between the cyclists and the pedestrians. Just zooming in a bit more detail here of that car park layout on the west of Old Stirling Bridge. So again, the detail is very similar to the rest of the route so far from the train station. You've got the bi-directional cycleway and half a metre segregation. Okay, now we come to Causeway Head. So our concept design, we were looking at Causeway Head as a fully segregated cycleway throughout the entirety, but we can see here that I've highlighted Dunster Road as well. So our concept design, we'll zoom in on two of those locations. It was a bi-directional cycleway for the entirety of the west side of the road, and for us to achieve this we needed to narrow down the carriageway to 6 metres, whilst also having some of the land that's Network Rail's land that runs alongside the railway, and there was also some pinch points even with this. We had to redesign the roundabout as well to allow that 3 metre segregation around and to continue along to Airthray Road. There was quite a lot of consultation done around this, some concerns raised about having a cycleway along Causeway Head, some saying that Dunster Road would still be the best route. A lot of people would probably still use it. There was, however, demand for safer crossings in some of the busier locations, and concerns about the detail around the bus stops and how the sort of conflict potential with the cycleway. So throughout that feedback, we realised that we need to open up to two options. We had quite a detailed options appraisal on various ways to deal with the cycleway itself, whether it would be unidirectional, so cycleway as it is at the moment, but just segregated throughout the entirety, or whether it be bidirectional on the west compared to the east. So we looked at all those options, and we still remained that the bidirectional on the northbound carriageway was the preferred for the segregated option. However, we have now looked at improving Dunster Road as well. So rather than continuing on a causeway head, we'd like to turn and follow the existing cycle route along Dunster Road. But we'd still like to take the opportunity to improve causeway head by widening the footways and also adding in these additional crossings. So we'll look at the developed design for causeway head, the two options here. So Causeway Head Road, it's very much similar to the concept design being the cycleway on the northbound carriageway. However, due to our constraints needing to maintain the road at 6 metres and 6.5 metres, sorry, and unable to take any of Network Rail's land due to constraints with the railway, we do have some pinch points that are difficult to overcome. And we will look at those in a bit more detail. So we're not able to maintain our 3 metre minimum cycleway along here. However, there are opportunities to introduce traffic calming measures, make Causeway Head a 20-mile-per-hour zone, and put in raised table crossings at all the junctions. And the second option then is looking at Dunster Road, so we can improve the existing layout for Dunster Road, making it more of a cycle street like we've talked about previously. So this would include doing some potential build outs and give way details, whilst allowing cyclists to bypass these and maintain the priority. We can change the priority at the junctions as well. So currently those travelling north or south along Dunster Road have to give way at each of these junctions, whereas we can change that to allow the north-south movements to move more freely. And as I said as well, if we were looking at Dunster Road, we'd still like to look at improvements on Causeway Head for walking, and this could be by narrowing the road down but giving that space back to the footway, and adding in the crossings that were requested through consultation. So this is the detail that would be present for the Causeway Head segregated cycleway route, and an idea of what Dunster Road would look at these build outs here. So we could use the build outs for the addition of some planting, and the build outs would just create that sort of give way traffic calming feature, whilst you can see the cyclists are able to bypass and maintain that primary position. And all parking would be retained in this location. So there are various pros and cons of both options. Causeway Head segregated would reprioritise the road space to make active travel modes along a main transport corridor. The transformation will add a safe alternative cycling route to Dunster Road. It will provide a direct link connecting to the Manor Powys project. And there is the potential to transform Causeway Head roundabout into a more pleasant place to walk and cycle and tackle the current drainage issues there. And it does provide a link to the city centre for the people living to the east of the roundabout. However, as we've spoken about, there are constrained spaces at the pinch points, making it below our sort of desired standards for safe segregated cycleway, and narrowing down footways in certain sections. And it's going to be more difficult and challenging to deliver. Whereas Dunster Road is a more pleasant route to travel. It is currently the NCN. There are less constraints to overcome, and there's less interaction with vehicles, so less driveway and it's taken away from the busy road, so away from the vehicle and noise pollution. However, we would be leaving Causeway Head without any of this segregated cycle infrastructure north of Demyat Junction. So no matter what option we do go with, there is still a constraint that needs to be overcome. just south of the Dumyat junction, where it would then continue on to Dunster Road. There's a short stretch, about 30 metres, where we are totally restricted to the space and would need to bring in the road down to the 6 metres minimum, but the cycleway would be reduced below our standards, down to 2 metres, and even the footway would need to come down to 1.6 for this short stretch. So we could look at maintaining the segregation for this short stretch by pinching everyone in. Alternatively, we could have this short section where it would be classed as a shared use path, so allowing that sort of movement across the space for the main user that's currently using it at the moment, allowing a bit more flexibility. So that's something that we're open to review with the stakeholders and yourselves. So appreciate the feedback you can provide us on those two options. And then we just finish up on Airthry Road. So both of these options would connect to Airthry Road. And our concept design again was just the bi-directional cycleway along the west side of the road. So going past the school, across the roundabout, and then continuing up to the roundabout at the university. So there's concerns about the conflicts between pedestrians and cyclists along the sort of previous proposed shared use space just before the school. There was problems raised about the existing barriers that they wanted them removed, and there was also a demand for a safe crossing on Airthry Road to allow connection to the Institute of Sport. So we have proposed to take away these barriers at the crossing. We have now redesigned the layout just behind the bus stop to allow the segregation to continue between cyclists and pedestrians, and we have put in a proposed signalised crossing to allow access to the Institute of Sport. So here you can see that that design. We will zoom in a bit more detail for the section outside the school, and we've put in that crossing at the Institute of Sport there. Just a zoomed in section here, we'd be looking to put in a controlled crossing here at the main university access point, and then there's also allowing connections for future works to Bridge of Allen. This is the zoomed in area I spoke about just outside the school. We've just redesigned the banking here at the back of the bus stop, allowing for the segregated cycleway to continue and pedestrians to use the path that would then come down and connect onwards. And just another visualisation of how Airthry Road would look with the segregated cycleway here, and the contrasting materials. You've got your ½ metre buffer as well between the cyclists and the carriageway. And then again, just a typical section of how that would look. So thank you for listening. I will repeat that presentation again at 5 o'clock for those that have dropped in halfway through, but we'll just now go on to the questions and answers. I'll read out some of those that have been submitted throughout the presentation. So there's a question here about the idea of boulders to protect the cycle lane on Upper Craigs and whether they're necessary to stop vehicles parking. So we did take that into account and consideration when doing our developed designs, and so we're not proposing for those that detail in Upper Craigs, but we will monitor this site and introduce any more physical measures if necessary. So will the traffic lights be remodelled to allow bikes coming out of Port Street to join traffic flow on Upper Craigs or Dumbarton Road? So we are looking to develop the phasing of the traffic lights here to provide safe movement of cyclists and pedestrians between Upper Craigs and Albert Place. As part of this, it is important to look at wider links, including Port Street. So we would like to investigate this further and make a decision on whether it is best delivered as part of this project or in the future with the implementation of the designated cycle infrastructure along these routes. Okay. Will there be boulders or double yellow lines to discourage vehicles parking on the cycle lanes on Drip Road? So there will be double yellow lines, yes, but also there won't be The cycleway it's a mandatory cycleway, so it's enforceable and there shouldn't be any parking on there. On Drip Road, the cycleway would be the same level as the footway as well, so there'd be that 100mm upstand, just so like a vehicle mounting a footpath. So when are the public realm, pedestrian and cycle improved access works at the station forecourt due to be done, before or after the project? So the programme for the construction for the station forecourt is due to start at the tail end of the summer, about September time, and would finish winter 2023. And the wider project construction of the two routes is due to finish spring 2023. So the idea is we would like to coordinate the projects, have Goosegroff Road and the station forecourt working in tandem to ensure that they line up. So we are working closely with ScotRail and their programme and Network Rail to ensure that these projects all align. So questions can keep getting submitted. In the meantime, like I said, I will restart the presentation at 5 o'clock for those that have missed any or would like to stay on for a bit longer and keep submitting questions. The website is live for looking at the plans in more detail. You can zoom in online or you can download the PDFs. You can see and submit your feedback through there. Okay, got another question that's come through just about the curbs again. Well, the suggestion of curbs to stop parking on the cycleways. So a curb is ineffective at stopping pavement parking by owners of motor vehicles. We need cannonballs, boulders, as drivers will fear that their car might get damaged. So there is legislation to prevent vehicles parking on the footway. Ultimately, it does come down to enforcement. It will come into play by the time the routes are constructed. This needs to be monitored, and if needs be, we will enforce. Would need to enforce more if it is a problem. So we wouldn't look to implement boulders or similar segregation, as it would use up valuable space for users, and hopefully that would be unnecessary. So we can have some more coming in. That's and then I'll restart the presentation at 5 o'clock. Okay, I've just got a final question to read out from the first round of the presentation, and then I'll move on to repeat. So a question on access to Manor Powys from Causeway Head roundabout. So both of the options for Causeway Head, we would still look to implement crossings on each arm of Causeway Head roundabout. So those that are travelling either to or from Manor Powys can utilise these crossings, albeit they might need to dismount depending on what proposal we go forward with Causeway Head. So the Manor Powys cycle route would run on the north, so at the eastbound carriageway of Alloa Road. So if they were wanting to connect and continue along to Airtree Road, they could use the north arm crossing. And then again, they could then cross on the west arm, which would then take them onwards to Airtree Road, and they can tie into the segregated cycleway from that way. And likewise, if they're going south to Causeway Head, they can utilise the crossing on the south arm and either join the segregated cycleway if that is the option, or they can continue on carriageway. So again, it might just be the case of dismounting. It just depends on what option is taken forward for Causeway Head. Okay, so I'm just going to start the presentation again for those that might be dropping in just now or wanted to catch some bits that they missed earlier on. So thank you all those that have managed to come along today to the drop-in for the Walk Cycle Live Stirling project to view the developed designs for this round of consultation. We've got the question and answer function that can be utilised through Microsoft Teams. You can submit your questions to the team that are working behind the scenes to answer those, or you can go online as well to view the proposals in more detail. You can zoom in online, or you can download the PDFs. You can print them out, but also online you can submit your feedback through each section of the route has its own feedback section. So we'll just start with the project overview. We'll touch on what the project is and why we're doing it. We'll then speak about the project organisation, so who's behind the scenes of the project and what is the timescales where we are within this project. And then we'll go to look at the developed designs of both the routes. So what is Walk Cycle Live Stirling? Well, it's an active travel project that Stirling Council in partnership with Sustrans are seeking to deliver exemplar walking and cycling infrastructure, as well as creating more attractive and dynamic public spaces. And it's a project that's targeted to transform the city of Stirling into a more sustainable, vibrant and accessible place for everyone to live, work and to visit. And we'll be transforming two of our key transport corridors, making it easier for people to walk and cycle into the city centre. And along these two routes, there will be spaces created for people to rest, play, connect with nature and learn more about the city's rich history. Excuse me. So on screen here, we've got a map of the two routes, the Stirling Station to the University route and the city centre to Forth Valley College route. And for context, the Stirling Station to Forth Valley College route starts at Stirling train station and then continues along Cowan Street past the Cowan Centre, across Old Stirling Bridge, along Causeway Head and then connects to Airtree Road, where it then terminates just outside the University main entrance at the roundabout. And the city centre to Forth Valley College route starts at the city centre at Upper Craigs and continues along Albert Place, past Albert Halls and the Smith Art Gallery, along Dumbarton Road past the King's Knot and then north along Raploch Road and then terminates at Drip Road just outside the Forth Valley College. So why are we doing Walk Cycle Live Stirling? Well, Stirling Council's local development plan and the City Region deal has set out ambitious plans for Stirling to grow in a way that gives us the best possible place for people to live and enjoy, whilst enabling walking, cycling and placemaking within the city. And we have committed to increasing the number of shorter journeys made on foot and by bike, and this will help tackle traffic congestion, air quality and health issues, as well as improving the public realm and urban experience. And ultimately, by providing a better cycling and network infrastructure, we will bring additional economic, health and environmental benefits to our city. So who's behind the scenes for this project? Well, we've got myself, I'm Kaylee, the project manager for Walk Cycle Live, and we have Kevin Argue as our transport development team leader. And we've got Michaela Jackson on board as well as our community engagement officer. And for the Sustrans team, we've got Mary Davis and Davina Bright as project coordinators, and we've got Letty Valley as an infrastructure officer as well. So back in 2020, in February last year, we went out to consultation for our concept design. So we held various workshops, design drop-in events, and we had our website live as well for comments and viewing the proposals. So since then, we've collected and collated that feedback and then prepared developed designs, which we're bringing to you today and throughout March and April. At the end of this consultation phase, we'd like to have the designs finalised to allow us to progress onto the construction details, allowing construction to commence at the tail end of the summer and with an estimated 2-year construction period. So the Walk Cycle Live Stirling was funded through the Stirling and Clackmannanshire City Region Deal Active Travel Programme, and it's been match funded by Sustrans Scotland. So we'll move on now to the developed design. So we'll go through the Forth Valley College route first and then speak about the university route. So we'll touch on the concept designs and what the feedback was and the updated developed designs. So we'll start with Upper Craigs, then move on to Albert Place, Dumbarton Road, Raploch Road and Drip Road for the Forth Valley College route. And just to get your bearings, we'll just show you a more detailed map with some of the locations marked up here. And we'll start with Upper Craigs. Okay, so it's just at the back of the Pure Gym at the city centre, and then it stops at the Port Street junction there. So the concept design proposals were for a one direction traffic only through Upper Craigs travelling east. So this would be opening up Upper Craigs to one-way traffic, allowing the extra carriageway space of another lane to be reallocated to the cycle infrastructure and widening the footpaths here. And it would be a left turn only at this junction, and again left turn again at the end of the Well Green Road. So taking traffic away from the Craigs roundabout and making it a less desirable through route, sort of preventing that it used for any of those using it as a shortcut. So the cycleway unidirectional would be travelling westbound in a segregated lane, and then eastbound they'd be sharing the carriageway space. And we've allowed the more space to be allocated to public realm improvements at the east, as the turning circle, which is currently used, can be is no longer needed. So I had some suggestions here about making the junction a raised table so pedestrians can cross and follow the desire lines. There were some suggestions to reduce or take away the parking on Upper Craigs, potentially just allowing limited parking at the east end. There was a suggestion that where the benches were located wasn't good, and there's some suggestions to pedestrianise the whole street. So what we have done, we've changed the layout slightly. So the cycle, this unidirectional cycle lane is now on the other side, so it just improves the safety for all. There's no more conflicts between parked cars as well. We've eliminated the parking bays that we situated down at the east, just to try and give this back to the public realm space, make it more of an event space. We've added some additional greenery and some trees, and also improved the junction at the Port Street as well. So we'd like all the footways here to be natural stone. We'd like to raise the table, raise the junction, sorry, so there are level crossings at the Port Street and also at Cameronian Street halfway through Upper Craigs. And we're just going to look into a bit more detail about where the current turning circle is at the east end of Upper Craigs. So you can see here the cyclists will be sharing the carriageway, but vehicle movements will be restricted to a left turn only at this end. And we've just given all that space back to the public realm. Again, natural stone footways, adding in greenery, so the space could be used for events of any sorts. The businesses in this area could utilise the space. Just makes it more of an attractive space to be. And this is just a view looking westbound of how the segregated unidirectional cycleway would look. You can see there's some safe crossings there for pedestrians, and we've also retained the disabled, the loading and the permit holder parkings. And just a section for all the different material choices here, how it could look. So a nice natural stone for the footways, a contrasting material for the cycleway with a 0.5 metre segregation. Parking could be retained with a detail similar to that shown, so a different material for the parking to the carriageway. And there's just a visual there of showing you that the space does still allow delivery vehicles to access it. So we then continue on to Albert Place, which is from that Port Street junction up to Dumbarton Road on the west, just at the existing mini roundabout before the King's Knot. So Albert Place also includes Dumbarton Road East, so the bit outside the businesses that connects onto Upper Craigs. So our concept design consultation for Albert Place included a bidirectional segregated cycleway along the north side of the street. And there was limited space with this, so the width of the footway was reduced at some of these pinch points, even after reducing the carriageway to 5.5 metres, and the cycleway would also be reduced down to 2.8. The trees at the west were also in danger, even with these constraints to the carriageway, the cycleway and the footway. I would have to look at potentially removing and relocating or replanting these trees. There's also the parking on the north would have had to been taken up for the cycleway, and the parking at Dumbarton Road East, the loading and disabled bays would have needed to be relocated somewhere else. We looked in detail about this junction as well at the west end of Albert Place. So this is where it connects onto Dumbarton Road. Currently this is a mini roundabout, so what we're wanting to do here is take away that roundabout and make it into a junction, so sort of forcing traffic to continue round Queen's Road and making Albert Place a less desirable through route, more of a gateway for walking and cycling into the city, but maintaining it for access for the residents and the businesses. So there were suggestions that we needed to have raised crossings at the junctions, trying to reduce the radius at these junctions as well to reduce traffic speeds on approach. And there was the desire to see some traffic calming measures just to help reduce the speeds on approach to these zebra crossings. Following consultation, though, we understood the need, the desire to retain the trees along Albert Place and most of the parking, specifically the disabled parking and loading bays on Dumbarton Road East. So we have since reviewed the options available within the space constraints in this location to provide safe cycle infrastructure, and as such we are now proposing a cycle street would be the most suitable option. And a cycle street is designed so that active travel modes such as walking, cycling and wheeling will become the dominating form of traffic. And our designs will aim to make it immediately apparent to drivers that their guests and cyclists have the priority in this space. So we'll be looking at traffic calming measures, raised table crossings and other suggestions that was raised in the concept design. So we'll look at these areas into a bit more detail. So we've got the junction that we spoke about, and you can see how that's developed. We'll look at another section as well halfway through Albert Place, and we'll talk about the cycle street in more detail, and then a final visualisation just outside Albert Halls. So we've added some additional greenery at this junction here. We've allowed the cyclists to continue southbound, excuse me. And we've added in a safer crossing to allow facilitate connections to Kings Park and southbound. So for us to achieve a successful cycle street, we need to reduce the speed limit to 20 miles per hour. Traffic volumes need to be greatly reduced to below 2,000 vehicles a day. Introducing raised tables and cycle-friendly rumble strips on the carriageway. So these are just changes in material in the sort of dark grey areas on the west here, so on the left of the screen, but it still allows cyclists to bypass through without needing to go near the change in material. We'd also be looking at reducing the carriageway further, but just visually, so allowing a 0.5 metre centre line that would be a different material. So again, a sort of rumble centre line. So rather than it just being white lines, as the visual shows there, it would be a different texture to try and force the vehicles into a more narrow space and thus reducing speeds. There'll be clear signage as well along the street, just re-emphasising cyclist priority. So just enforcing that vehicles should not be overtaking cyclists in this space, and that ultimately this is a cycle street and vehicles are guests. We'll just look at a visualisation as well outside of Albert Hall, so you can see where we've taken some of the footway, increased the footway, sorry, by taking some of the carriageway space. So this allows us to maximise the space here for people walking, but we've also made the street safer for those cycling. We've allowed these raised tables here at the junctions to provide more level crossings for those wishing to cross away from the zebra crossing if need be. You can see just north of the zebra as well that we've added in that visual narrowing along the centre line. And retaining the parking just north, you can see on both sides we've still got the parking. So we've added in new paving material as well to improve the space and greenery such as trees space allows. So we did present these proposals to the steering groups and stakeholders, and it quickly became apparent that for it to be a successful cycle street, we needed to look at how we achieve reduced traffic flows along Albert Place and Dumbarton Road East. So we need to reduce them by about 2/3. So we could consider such things as local access only, restricting vehicle movements from side streets and bus gates. Now, bus gates are used to prevent access by general traffic beyond a certain point, and it allows only buses, taxis and cyclist movement through. So we are currently exploring the possibility of a bus gate on Albert Place and Dumbarton Road East to reduce traffic volumes and discourage the use of the road as a through route to and from the city centre. And it is important that we do retain this bus movement. Allows people access to sustainable transport and also allows the tourism coaches to access the key visitor attractions. Now the vehicles would still be able to access the road, but only up to the gates from either direction, allowing the vehicles access to the residential properties and the businesses and key visitor attractions. So on screen, you'll see some 4 possible locations for bus gates. The blue circle represents the location of a bus gate for the westbound traffic, and the pink circle is the proposed location for a bus gate for the eastbound traffic. And the dashed line just represents the indicative route for what the restricted, for what would be restricted to buses, taxis and cycles from the point of the gate. So it's just important to remember that the side streets that the dashed line passes, they would still be, so from that point vehicles could access Albert Place. So those that require access to Albert Place can do so. The bus gate just enforces the restriction of through traffic. So rather than just signage for access, local access only, this just enforces that. And ultimately it will then provide a safer street for cyclists, a more pleasant environment for the local residents, businesses and for those that walk in the area. So our suggestion would be that the bus gate would be located either side of Allen Park. So this would be option 3. And we'd implement this through just simple traffic signs and road markings at either side of Allen Park. Now here, vehicles travelling from the town to the west would be diverted back to the town centre via Allen Park, creating an inconvenient route for the westbound traffic. And the other options would also work. However, we just need to successfully ensure that the route is inconvenient for through traffic. We would need to explore restricting movements to some of the side streets that may be used as shortcuts to avoid the bus gate. So restricting certain movements, banning left or right turns, or even just blocking off some of the streets altogether could help that. So we'll just continue on with the rest of the route now as well. Dumbarton Road, which then leads on to Raploch Road. The slide should show you in a second. Here we go. So Dumbarton Road is the route that continues on from Albert Place past the King's Knot, and then it continues north along Ratlock Road there. And it crosses Backer Hill Road onto the Ratlock. So our concept design continued a segregated cycleway along Dumbarton Road and then along Ratlock Road. Our specific workshops throughout concept focused on reallocating the parking that's lost along Dumbarton Road, and we were proposing the spaces be used around the roundabout just on the north there. However, there were concerns during our sort of steering group workshops with consultation with the stakeholders that it'd be too problematic, a risk of conflict between reversing vehicle manoeuvres and the cyclists and pedestrians going behind the car park. There was also notes here as well that we needed to link to the west and for future cycle routes to Gargunnock. So what we did with our developed designs is we've since relocated the parking area to the other side of the roundabout, so therefore taking away that interaction with cyclists along this route. And we have added a crossing to facilitate the link to Gargunnock and added segregation, wider segregation between cyclists and cars along Ratlock Road and Dumbarton Road. So we'll just look at these areas in more detail for the developed design. We'll start with Dumbarton Road. Again, no major changes on Dumbarton Road itself. It's still providing this bi-directional cycleway. However, just at the north end there, we've added in a safe crossing point, and you can see that we've changed the parking to the other side, taking away that interaction. The section in blue there just shows the route for those that will want to travel west can do so. And then onwards to Ratlock Road, where again, no significant changes to our concept design. We've just raised here though that there is a short section at a pinch point which requires us to narrow it down, and ultimately it's below our standards, so we'd be suggesting this would just be treated as a shared use for this short stretch. But ultimately the rest of it would be our 3 metre wide cycleway, but with a 1 metre segregation between the carriageway and the cycleway. And we can just look at a section of what that would look like. And you can see here we've got the contrasting colour between the cycleway and the footway, and a sort of metre segregation between the carriageway and the cyclists here as well. So Ratlock is where we just about finish on the college route. We've currently got Robertson's Homes constructing on Ratlock as well, so we're just trying to coordinate our works with them. Our concept design was led by Sustrans through the Ratlock Street Design Project, so it's heavily community led. A lot of the designs that came about, we never changed the concept, we just changed it into our sort of format design. So this just relays what was dealt with through that, and it was just a bi-directional cycleway that continued and then allowed cyclists to use either the carriageway along Ratlock Road or the side street that runs parallel to Ratlock Road. Was the reduction of speed here as well to 20 miles per hour, and the removal of centre line, and adding in these raised tables at the junctions as a traffic calming feature and providing a level crossing at these locations. So there were some feedback from those proposals, specifically about the connection between the side street and continuing to the segregated routes, so how we deal with that. So for the developed design, what we did look at though was treating Ratlock more as a cycle street, so we tried to replicate what we're proposing in Albert Place, and just for consistency, for anywhere that cyclists would need to be on carriageway, we just want that similar detail to be consistent throughout. So we're suggesting to visually narrow the carriageway further by this rumble strip that we spoke about. So it's a 0.5 metre different texture surface that runs at the centre line. And we have improved the connections for cyclists that wish to use the side street, so they can still either enter and exit the segregated routes. So our development designs here we'll look at as well. So this is just the same area, but in the developed details. So the carriageway Again, it's difficult to see in this, I appreciate, but we'd be looking at replicating that cycle street detail where it's a granite chip surface, but with a 0.5 metre centre line of a rumble strip, allowing cyclists to either use that or they could use the side street that runs parallel along Raploch Road. And then it just continues up north before it connects to Drip Road, and here we're just sort of maximising the public realm space, so improving the footways, adding in some planters to sort of help separate between the carriageway and the footway, just maximising the space that we've got here. Just zoomed into one of these locations on Raploch Road to how we can improve the junctions here. So this is Huntly Crescent on Raploch Road, and we're just trying to tighten up the junctions, so reducing the turning area for vehicle movement, so forcing them to enter the junctions more slowly. We'd like to introduce new material rather than tarmac in these sections here, so improving the footway space and adding in some planting and trees where possible, and also looking at adding in a zebra crossing here. So this is the same location that we've just spoken about from a bird's eye view, but looking as a visual, looking northbound. So you can see the improved greenery as well along the centre, and just maximising the public realm space and introducing some greenery. And just another section of how we can see it all working. So the cyclists can use the carriageway on Raploch Road or the side street that runs parallel. And then finally we finish at Drip Road here. So again, it just continues along west where it terminates at the college. The proposals at concept, again, we didn't change from what was done through the Raploch street design. So it's just a unidirectional segregated cycleway, which was at carriageway level, and a raised table at the junction connecting Drip Road to the east. Our developed designs have maintained this detail of the unidirectional. We've just detailed out this layout in a bit more specifically at the junction to Drip Road, ensuring that cyclists can connect quite coherently. We've improved the access to the bus stops in these locations, and also we're proposing this location to be the cyclists and pedestrians to be at the same level, but just still physically segregated with a 20mm rounded curb upstand, as well as a contrasting material between the two. So it allows us just that extra space. This is what it could look like. This is a typical section in this area, so you can see the unidirectional with the contrasting material at the same level as the footpath. We'll just now move on to the university route. So I hope people have been submitting their questions as well, and they're getting answered by the team, so feel free to keep doing that while you're listening in. And also while you're listening, you can go online to the website and look at our proposals in more detail. You can zoom in online or download the PDFs. So the Stirling University route will then goes on to Goosecroft Road, Cowan Street, Lower Bridge Street, Causeway Head and Airthry Road. And just to point out those streets in a contextual map. So we'll just start at the south there at the train station, so on Goosecroft Road. And the project will tie in with the station redevelopment works, the programme to start at the tail end of the summer as well. So we'd look to coordinate the two projects and the designs interface well. They're proposing segregated cycleway that goes through the forecourt and will tie in with our Walk Cycle of Stirling project. So we looked at a bidirectional cycleway to the west side of the road here that just continued from the station throughout. So as concerns about the junction designs, it wasn't detailed enough to be able to answer those concerns. There were suggestions that we needed to change the priorities at the minor junctions on Goosecroft Road to help facilitate pedestrian and cyclist movement, and a suggestion of adding more time for pedestrians to cross the signalised junction at 4th place. So what we've done is we have improved the minor junctions on Goosecroft by making them level raised table crossings. We have looked in more detail at the 4th place junction and redesigned this to ensure that it's still a segregated cycleway across, And we've just also highlighted here that the southbound bus stop has been relocated to allow that extra space to be reallocated to pedestrians and cyclists. So the three junctions here are can be seen. The two at the north there, the sort of green sections, are the minor junctions where we're proposing it to ramp up. So vehicles ramp up to cross the junction, but allows a level crossing for pedestrians, trying to enforce that pedestrian prioritisation. And then we'll look in a bit more detail at the fourth place junction. So here you can see the tie-in to the station forecourt just at the south there, and we're maintaining the bus laybys and the right-hand filter turn here, as well as being able to fit in our bi-directional cycleway. And this is a visual of what it could look like. Excuse me. And this typical section allows the space to be visualised a bit easier. Retaining the footway either side, the bus lay-by, the 2 lanes of traffic, as well as the right-hand filter lane to Riverside. So the route just continues along Cowan Street, so just from Goosecroft north up past the Cowan Centre. And we've got plenty of space here, so our concept design was fairly straightforward to accommodate a bi-directional cycleway that just continued along. And we managed to retain the parking in this area. However, we did look to take some of the parking and give it space for some additional greenery and potential rain gardens in this location. So concept design consultation highlighted that the addition of greenery was welcome, so additional trees in this location was welcomed. There was concerns about the location of crossings. There was a suggestion of the one that we proposed at the north of Cowan Street should be closer to the bus stop. It was also highlighted that the current crossing at just outside Pizza Hut is currently dangerous with the bus stop interaction. And just a general comment there that improving the crossings at junctions. So we have redesigned the junctions to make them safer. We have relocated the control crossing as suggested closer to the bus stop and the Cowan Centre. And we have suggested to make Douglas Street exit only, which just allows that junction to work much safer with the segregated cycleway and footway. So this is just an overview of what the street would look like, very similar to the concept design proposals, but just in a bit more detail. And you can view these online, so you can actually zoom in and actually see the detail further. We'll just zoom in here at the Wallace Street junction. We've redesigned the layout junction here just to make it safer for cyclists and pedestrians to get across. The existing zebra crossing there outside of Pizza Hut is being retained. However, what we have done is set back the bus stop further north, just to take away that interaction between the buses and blocking any sort of sight lines for those wishing to overtake just in front of a zebra crossing. So it takes away that concern. This is a visual of the north of Cowan Street, of how it could look like. So here we have taken some of the parking spaces on one of the sides and just given that way for space for tree planting. And just again, the same theme, a typical cross section here of how this space is allocated. So the route just continues on to Lower Bridge Street, the same again as a bi-directional cycleway that continues up to the roundabout and then crosses on Old Stirling Bridge. So our concept design though was a signalised junction, so we would have been proposing to take away the roundabout that's currently there and making it into a fully signalised junction. And we also suggested a natural play area to the west. There was concerns about the location of this play area, concerns being next to quite a busy road, and suggestions that potentially on the other side, closer to the Old Stirling Bridge, would be more appropriate. There were suggestions to make the segregation slightly wider on approach to the junction, and also suggestions that there was a crossing required on Lower Bridge Street as well to allow connections to Raploch. So we have done that. We added in the zebra crossings in these locations. The change here though is that we are retaining the roundabout. So we're no longer proposing that we change this to a fully signalised junction. We'd like to just retain it as it currently stands. But we are looking to do a signalised level crossing on Drip Road between the two roundabouts. We'll just look at these sections in more detail. So we've got the lower bridge streets, which is just west of Old Stirling Bridge, and then the bit that's east of Old Stirling Bridge. So we have added in the zebra crossings as we touched on here, allowing the connections on to Raploch, and you can see that the roundabout is being retained, but the cycleway veers around to a safe signalised crossing on Drip Road, and therefore those that wish to use the underpass can still do so, but it allows an alternative route for those that don't want to use the underpass. We've added in some tree planting strips along the paths, just creating that extra buffer between pedestrians and cyclists, and just making the area more attractive. Just another zoomed in location here of the section just west. So you can see that we've also reconfigured the car parking space just off of Lawrence Croft Road here. And the section is pretty much the same as what we've seen to date. It's contrasting cycleway materials, bi-directional, with your ½ metre buffer between the carriageway and the cycleway. We'll just move on to Causeway Head now. Our concept design proposals suggested that it proposed a bi-directional cycleway for the full length of Causeway Head Road, but you'll notice here that I have highlighted Dunster Road as well. So we're just going to look at these in more detail of what was proposed at concept and what we are proposing now. Excuse me. So the bi-directional cycleway was able to be accommodated on Causeway Head Road, but we'd have needed to reduce the carriageway down to 6 metres. So 6.5 would normally be our minimum. However, we were looking to the opportunity to try and push this even further down to 6 metres, allowing that extra ½ metre to be allocated to walking and cycling. And again, it continues up to the roundabout. We would have looked at reconfiguring the roundabout here just to try and ensure that that connection can be maintained, and that 3 metre wide cycleway can continue along up to Airtree Road. Throughout consultation, however, there were concerns about our proposals, concerns about how the cycleway interacts with the bus stops, concerns of cars parking in the cycle lanes as they currently do so now, the need for safer crossings in certain locations, suggestions that Dunster Road would be the better route as it currently is. So what we did was we took all that feedback on board and we did a very detailed options appraisal of doing a segregate cycleway along Causeway Head Road. We looked at maintaining it as a current proposal of a bi-directional on the west. We looked at it on a bi-directional on the east, and we also looked at having it as a unidirectional. However, throughout the options appraisal, the bi-directional on the west, so the northbound carriageway, came out to be the preferred option. We have also looked at an alternative option of using Dunster Road as it currently is the existing NCN. So it would be a segregated cycleway up to Demyat Junction and then would veer off to Dunster Road. But if this was the option that stakeholders wish to take forward, we would still like to look at the opportunity to improve Causeway Head by reducing the carriageway and giving that space back to the footways, and also introducing the crossings that we've proposed. So for it to be a segregated cycleway, I touched on previously that for us to allow the segregated cycleway to fit, we needed the carriageway to be reduced down to 6 metres. However, we have to maintain it at 6.5, and we're restricted with land ownership on the other side that runs along the railway there. So it does pose some constraints along this route where the cycleway is below 3 metres for large lengths of it, and in some sections down to about 2 metres, which is below our standards. They are short sections, however, but we'll touch on those constraints in a bit more detail later on. We could look at introducing a 20 mile per hour limit along here and enforcing that with some traffic calming features, which can be looked at in a bit more detail following consultation. The second option that we said here was Dunster Road. So again, replicating the cycle street detail that we spoke about for Albert Place and Ratblock, we'd like to introduce similar themes along Dunster Road. So it'd be making the carriageway the same material, but for this location here, we'd like to introduce some build outs potentially just by helping mitigate Dunster Road as a through route. Any users that would normally use Causeway Head using it as a sort of shortcut. So these build outs would also allow cyclist priority, so they'd be able to bypass rather than having to wait and give and take as the vehicles would do. But you can also see here the Causeway Head proposals are still reducing the carriageway down, but giving that space to the footpaths. And we are still proposing to add in these crossings, and you'll notice around the roundabout as well on each arm there's a crossing. And this is a typical section, so it's similar to all the other ones we've seen today, except it's just on the other side of the carriageway here. Dunster Road, these are the build outs that they could look like that we spoke about. We're retaining the parking along this section, but you just create these planted areas, these build outs to create a give way scenario for the vehicles, but ensuring that cyclists can still get priority through these. We're aware that there are many pros and cons for both options. So the pros for Causeway Head include reprioritising the road space to an active travel mode in a main transport corridor. It is quite a strong advert for modal shift as well. Its transformation will add a safe alternative cycling route to Dunster. It does provide a link towards Manor Powis project, and it allows us the opportunity to transform Causeway Head roundabout into a more pleasant place to walk and cycle, whilst providing a link to the city centre for those living in the east as well. We did speak about the constraints as well. That's a significant problem with Causeway Head, and we'll touch on that next. And it is a more challenging project to deliver. Dunster Road, however, is a more pleasant route to travel. It's currently the NCN. There are much less constraints to overcome, and there's also less interaction with vehicles, so less driveway and conflicts such as that. However, this would leave Causeway Head without any protected cycle infrastructure for those that do wish to cycle along Causeway Head. So the pinch point that we need to overcome, regardless of whether it's option 1 or 2, is just situated south of Dumyat Junction. So just before you then take the junction to go on Dunster Road. It's about a 30-metre stretch where we are significantly constrained. We're unable to take space from anywhere, and for this stretch even the carriageway is getting pinched down to 6 metres. However, we also are down to about 2 metres for the cycleway and 1.6 metres for the footway. So all of these are below our standards, and it's pinching everybody in at this short stretch. So we've got 2 proposals that we're bringing to yourselves and to the stakeholders. Is what option would be preferred for this location? Do we maintain the segregation, considering that everyone's getting sort of pinched in at this point here, or do we make this section what would be termed technically as shared use? So you have no physical segregation between cyclists and pedestrians here. So we'd like to hear your feedback on those 2 options, as well as Causeway Head or Dunster Road. So both options then connect onto Airthry Road, which then terminates just outside the University of Stirling. Our concept design, again continuing the same theme, a bi-directional segregated cycleway which runs along the west side here. So there was a short section just before the roundabout, sorry, at the school, where we'd potentially have had to have a shared use space due to some constraints with the existing arrangement at the back of the bus stop. Feedback through concept design was concerns about this shared space, considering how busy the location would be with school pupils, etc. There was a concern about the barriers at the crossing. They wanted those to be removed, and also a demand for a crossing on Airthry Road to allow connections to the Institute of Sport at the back of the university. So our proposals have taken away these barriers. We're suggesting that they come away at the crossing. We've managed to do some design work to ensure that the segregation can be maintained. We'll look at that in a bit more detail as to how we've achieved that. And we are also proposing a signalised crossing to allow access to the Institute of Sport. So these are our developed design proposals, so very similar to the concept, just in more detail. And again, what I've just touched on is the control crossing. So there's a control crossing here at the entrance to the University of Stirling, and also allows connections onwards to Bridge of Allan. And this is the other improvement here from the concept design, is at the back of the bus stop, just before the high school, between the two roundabouts here. We're just changing the embankment slightly, removing the steps, and therefore maintaining the cyclists and pedestrians as segregated users. And this is how we see it looking along the stretch of Airthry Road. So you've got allowance there for pedestrians to use the footway on both sides, and you've got your segregated bi-directional cycleway on the west. And again, just a typical section of how that would look. So thank you for listening to that. We'll just go back to the questions and answers that have been submitted throughout. And I can read some out. Okay. So with Upper Craigs open to through motor vehicle traffic, possibly en route to the railway section, what level of through traffic does your modelling suggest we should expect? What vehicle per day numbers? So unfortunately we don't have the data to hand, but the modelling didn't show any issues with capacity. As the Albert Place route is no longer a protected cycle lane and now a cycle street, what are your thoughts about making the Forth Valley College route take the university route and then branching off along Ramsey Place Drip Road just before the Old Stirling Bridge? So, as you'll note from the presentation, these routes have been through a huge period of design appraisal and detail. We are now committed to these routes, but we are always willing to consider further improvements where possible. Okay. Why go down Dunster Road? Could you not configure the route to navigate right up Causeway Head? Okay, so through the detailed design process, we have considered this in great detail. Unfortunately, space required for carriageway, cycling, footway isn't there, and it would be constrained. So we are still considering Causeway Head Road improvements in addition to Dunster Road. So we are consulting on the two options. Are the pedestrian barriers on Ratlock Road being taken out, or do they remain outside the new houses? So our proposals are that they are being removed along that stretch of Ratlock Road, and that's the idea of putting in these planters as well, just to still maintain some form of segregation between those walking on the footway and the carriageway, but allowing more permeability for people to be able to cross. Okay, we've still got 10 minutes left, and I appreciate there's still questions coming in, so we will work on answering those. If you obviously have more questions and feedback to give us, you can go online onto our website and view our proposals. You can download the PDFs as well, and you can print them out if that's easier for you, and you can submit your feedback there. Okay, we've got another question that's just come in here. On Causeway Head Road, I think a lot of cyclists would be tempted to stay on Causeway Head Road rather than turn onto Dunster Road, especially if turning east at Causeway Head roundabout. So yes, thank you for this. This is why we are consulting on both options. So user preference is a key consideration in design. Okay, we've just got a few more minutes for the last few questions that are coming in, and then we'll end the presentation at 6 o'clock. The presentation will get uploaded online as well, so for those that haven't been able to attend today, they'll still be able to listen in and see the questions and answers that were asked as well. Okay, we've got a question here about Airthrough Road as well. So where would the cycleway emerge onto Airthrough Road? Airthrough Road is heavily used by large trucks and lorries. Has this traffic flow been measured and assessed? Will there be additional speed control traffic calming measures to ensure safety? So the carriageway will be narrowed, which will in turn reduce the speeds of these vehicles. Traffic flows will not necessarily be altered, but we'll still be providing the same capacity for the road space. As cyclists will be segregated from vehicle traffic, with a sufficient buffer space, safety should not be a concern for cyclists and pedestrians. So as they connect onto Airthrough Road, they are segregated from the carriageway. Both these options. Okay, and finally, we've got one more here. Has the modelling been done around cycle use and preference on Causeway Head Road? How many people are going toward Manor House? This path is directed at uni students predominantly. The Dunster Road route provides a more direct and significantly safer option to this group. So the design and traffic modelling has been conducted. Through this consultation, we are collecting feedback on both the options of Causeway Head Road and Dunster Road. We've got some nice feedback there that the presentation was great. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Okay, we're just going to finish up there. We've just got a couple more feedback that's just come in. So just a point that's not necessarily the case that narrowing the carriageway will reduce heavy goods vehicle speed. And we've also got a note here that Dunster Road is a significantly quieter stretch of road. Crossing a cyclepath to enter flow of traffic on Causeway Head Road will be far riskier, more cognitively demanding than task than one might expect to the less busy Dunster route. I would see this as a significant mitigation of risk for cyclists. So we have noted this and thank you for this feedback. We just got a wee response here for the narrowing of the road. So evidence shows that narrowing the carriageway is effective in reducing speeds when facing oncoming traffic. Vehicles are more likely to speed if they have space and therefore need to drive less cautiously. So we're just going to finish up there. Thank you everyone who's listened in, and more so for those that have asked us questions and given us feedback. Thank you for all that. As I said as well, we will upload these presentations online onto our website for those that haven't been able to attend, and also all the plans are up on our website for comment and feedback to be submitted. Thank you again.